some more steps and create the final proposal. Then it gets accepted, and then yay, we are doing a workshop. Okay, so for the timeline, because it has deadlines, and that's again something that we're trying to make easy for everyone, because we know that it's a little bit hard to follow. So as part of this core ECB newsletter, we're going to share like a graphic with the outline with the timeline as well, and we've already shared one for Pret, I believe. So yeah. So 12 weeks before the start of the workshop, before the first day of the workshop, the preliminary proposal needs to be submitted. So that's about 3 months before the workshop is happening, before you're proposing it, you need to submit the preliminary proposal. We're going to be talking about what does that include later on. 6 weeks, so about 1.5 months in advance, the trainers already need to be selected, and they also need to be submitted to us. So these things are like the proposals, and the trainers are submitted through your capacity building regional assistants, and then they go to kind of all relevant people, including me. So whenever I see like a Pret being proposed wherever in the world, the proposal gets to me, and I get to give input on it, or contact the person organizing it, tell them like, yeah, like I like your proposal, I would maybe change these objectives a little bit, or I wouldn't include these sessions, I don't think they're relevant to Pret, I think you should focus on this more. And we have 2 weeks to give you input on this. Then same goes for approving trainers. Then when the trainers have been selected, the agenda is finalized. So in proposing the workshop, the preliminary proposal, the agenda is only like broad, like general. There's like breakfast, then there's sessions, then there's lunch, then there's sessions, then there's dinner. You don't need to set the specific agenda. The trainers are the ones actually setting the agenda in the end. So by after you've already selected your trainers, they selected the participants and finalized the agenda, you are ready to roll to submit the final proposal, which is a much smaller document than the preliminary one, and it basically just outlines all the specificities of the workshops, like the agenda. That's 1 month in advance of the workshops. Then at 0 weeks, then the workshop itself, or the SRT itself, is happening. Within 1 week after the SRT, you need to submit the post-evaluation form. So what you want to do is like submit a pre-evaluation form that doesn't have a deadline, so you can do it whenever. And then within 1 week after it's done, you submit give a post-evaluation form to your participants, so you can assess the impact of the workshop. And based on that, you develop the SRT report, or the workshop report. In there, you talk about how did the workshop go, which sessions did you perhaps need to omit because of time constraints, which sessions did you add, what was the feedback of the participants, and suggestions for future workshops. Yes, and then the certificates, those are in the responsibility of the VPA and their international team. The certificates for both the trainers and the participants, the deadline to get them is 9 months. Now, oftentimes you need to have some proof of participation or of training sooner, and it's not a problem to get that. You can do that as a letter of recommendation. You can provide that for your participants, stating that they indeed did participate in this workshop, and thus they can use that letter instead of the certificate. So yeah, unfortunately, they're like the certificates being handed out oftentimes takes longer because the VPA has thousands of them to tackle. So that's a way that you can, for example, immediately apply to trainers pool. Actually, regarding trainers pool, is everyone familiar with the trainers pool here, or is there someone who wants to explain what is the IFMSA trainers pool? You can raise your hand. I'm not going to ask you anything. I'm going to explain the trainers pool if you want to. Okay, most. All right. So the trainers pool Or you want to explain, or you want me to explain?
Well, I'm a bit greedy, but I'm actually also assistant VPCB here. So
Mm.
I'm actually responsible for the data, including the trainers pool and everything like that. But the floor is yours.
All right, thank you. But yes, I'm gonna quickly outline the trainers pool for you. So the IFMSA trainers pool, as the name kind of suggests, is a database of people who are trainers and who are currently active trainers. You need to apply there through a form. I can share it later with you. In the form, you can choose two paths. You can either be a facilitator or a trainer. That depends on whether you attended a trainers workshop, which can be TNT, training new trainers. It can be TNRT, it can be TNET, TMAT, TSHRT, SRHRT, sorry. And out of these, you become a trainer. So then the application is a little bit different, but even without attending anything, you can still apply to be a facilitator. In order to train international workshops like the ones that we're talking about here all the time, in order to be an ST, which is sessions team of, for example, exchanges sessions in your regional meeting or whatever, you need to be part of the IFMSA trainers pool. So that's why it's important to encourage people to apply after you've conducted a workshop, to maybe assist them in applying. In order to apply, you need to submit an outline of a training to kind of like prove that you know how to conduct the training and how to structure it. And the CBIT, the CB International Team, has this body of people approving it or reviewing it. It's called the Trainers Pool Advisory Board. If you heard about our SB, our supervising board, they work in very different ways, but they're kind of like this autonomous body to CBIT as well, which checks all these applications, gives input on them, and then approves it. Important thing to note is that every year the trainers pool is wiped and you need to update your trainers portfolio. So that's why we always share, like in November until December, I've shared with you over Nori and Scori server a form where you need to update your trainers portfolio or it gets wiped. So the fact that you applied once doesn't mean that you're in trainers pool forever, unfortunately. It's so that the trainers pool accumulates only the active trainers. Okay, that's it regarding the timeline. Feel free to screenshot it or whatever. It's outlined in the regulations as well. This is just like all of it in one place. And we're gonna develop some nice graphics for you to make it simple for you. Now I just want to address the preliminary and the final proposal. If you want to see the document for yourself or download it for inspiration, you can. You don't necessarily need to. So this is the proposal. This is the proposal for the TNRT, which we recently organized in the March meeting. I hope it's gonna load eventually. Yay. Okay, so the proposal has two parts. This is the preliminary part. So here you start with just some basic information about the people organizing it. Then there's this section on introduction to the workshop, where you want to give a background to the workshop. It's something actually that we, when reviewing it, look at a lot. And especially if you're submitting a workshop into an SR, into like a pre-regional meeting or something, where there's like a competition of workshops, you really want to have this very, very well done. So for example, if you're trying to get a workshop into pre-EMR, which was unfortunately canceled, and I was supposed to go there and train TNET in Qatar, but never mind. Then you want to focus on why is it important to organize this workshop right here. So you focus on the background, like what is the current state of research education in this region or in this NMO? How can this workshop contribute to improving that? And you also, if it's for a region, then it's really nice to look at the regional priorities and the regional strategy. and link it to that. So talk about how does it link, how does it help achieve the regional priorities, for example. So yeah, then you get to the goals and objectives. Then it's you probably heard about setting SMART goals. So that's something you really want to do here, because otherwise you will get your proposal back for review. So you want to set objectives, for example, to prepare participants to pass on their knowledge as research trainers through the trainers education framework. I digress when looking at this. It's not the most smart objective, but it's because it's distributed amongst the smart indicators. So yes, you set the objectives for the workshop. You talk about the expected number of participants, the methodology of the workshop. So here you outline, for example, we're going to do training sessions where there's going to be presentations, where there's going to be brainstormings, open space discussions, group projects. There's going to be whatever asynchronous works. The participants are going to be tasked to build a rocket asynchronously. They're going to have 1 day for it, and so on. So that's the methods that you're going to be using for them. This is not necessarily, like, from my perspective as the CBDA, the most important part to like have flawlessly, because the workshops generally share the methodology. So yeah, it's nice to add any additional ideas you have. For example, if you want to do recap groups, where at the end of each day you meet with the participants in the evening and just share their general emotions and their ideas of the day, what was their favorite or least favorite session, how to improve the day, etc. But it's really all up to you. Then you talk about the proposed method of selecting trainers. So when you're proposing this workshop, you don't have any trainers yet. So, and you are not allowed to ask for trainers. You can't open a call for trainers until you have the preliminary proposal, like, check approved. So you want to outline some criteria. Oftentimes the criteria are actually mentioned in the regulations. So you can just copy and paste that here because it's required by the regulations anyway, but you can also add whatever else. So here, for example, I added that the trainers will be selected using these questions. Like, what is your motivation, your background in research, background in capacity building, etc., etc. What is your opinion on open science? So there's that. Then you talk about the follow-up plan, which again is oftentimes required by the regulations, but feel free to elaborate on it. Here, this is the TNRT, so they're required to do a mini training and a graduation training. That's outlined here. It doesn't need to be as elaborate in this part, but I would say be as elaborate as you can in the background and in the objectives and indicators. Then you talk about the follow-up after the graduation. That's another important part, to not only talk about graduation or any like being approved that you attended workshop. It's nice to have a way to follow up the participants afterwards. For example, I'm currently scheduling an online meeting with my participants of the TNRT we had in Estonia recently. And we're gonna present each other outlines of sessions. We're gonna be talking about how are we applying what we learned, and how are we planning to deliver sessions on research education in our NMOs, etc. Yeah, so that's regarding the follow-up. Then there's any like fundraising plans and budget. If your workshop is being part of an SRT, then this is actually done in a different document. So most often you just don't write anything here. You write the list of materials you need. That's just pro forma, and you don't need to stress out over this too much. Contact details. And then the agenda proposal, which here we made it like 2 extra. As I said, here you can just add breakfast sessions, lunch sessions, dinner, and just like times when it's going to be happening, at what time there's going to be arrival, check-in, etc. And the final agenda will be set by the trainers. You can, if you want to, like us, put this agenda here, write this, the sessions that you want to cover. But bear in mind that this will be like finalized by the trainers, and if the trainers together with the coordinator want to change this, absolutely rework this, etc., then they can. Whatever comments left, and that is it. That is the preliminary workshop proposal. In the final workshop proposal,